In the spring of 2019, on the rolling hills of Augusta National, a roar rose from the pines. A familiar figure in a bright red shirt walked up the 18th fairway. Older now. Slower. His back held together by screws and plates. His legs aching from surgeries and time. For decades, he had seemed invincible, an artist with a club in his hands, a machine in his mind. Then, the world watched him fall apart, in public, piece by piece. But on that Sunday, as thousands chanted his name and millions watched from home, Tiger Woods, once again, was in position to win the Masters. It felt impossible. And yet, in many ways, this was the only ending his story could have. This is the life story of eldritch-toned Tiger Woods. A child prodigy. A revolutionary athlete. A deeply flawed man. And one of the greatest golfers who has ever lived. Chapter 1, Born into a Mission. Tiger Woods was born on 30th December 1975 in Cypress, California. His mother, Kultida, was born in Thailand with Thai, Chinese, and Dutch ancestry. His father, Earl Woods, was African American with Native American and Chinese roots. Tiger's heritage was uniquely mixed. Later in life he'd use a term of his own, Cablinasian, to describe it: Caucasian, Black, Indian, Asian. But long before he could name it, the world would simply know him as Tiger. The nickname came from Earl's friend in the US Army, a South Vietnamese soldier named Vuong Dang Phong, whose own nickname had been Tiger. Earl had promised that if he ever had a son, he'd name him after his friend. Earl was a former Green Beret. He had served multiple tours in Vietnam. He had seen fear up close. He had also seen extraordinary talent and extraordinary courage. And when he saw his young son pick up a golf club, he believed he was seeing something just as rare. Their small California garage became a training ground. Barely old enough to walk, Tiger watched Earl hit golf balls into a net. By the time he was a toddler, he was swinging cut-down clubs, imitating his father's motion. At the age of 2, he appeared on national television, The Mike Douglas Show, putting balls on stage alongside comedian Bob Hope. He could barely see over the putter, but he could knock the ball into the hole, calmly, on cue. It looked like a gimmick. A cute TV bit. It wasn't. The training was relentless. At home, Earl would roll balls across the carpet and have Tiger put them. At the driving range, he'd whisper in his son's ear, challenging him, telling him he could be the greatest who ever lived. And Earl believed it. He spoke about Tiger's potential in grand, almost mystical terms. He told reporters his son would have more impact on the world than Nelson Mandela. He believed Tiger would transcend sport, and even race. Whether that was inspiration, pressure, or both, would become one of the central questions of Tiger's life. But for the little boy holding the golf club, it was simple. This was his world: practice, repetition, golf balls, and his father's voice. Chapter 2, The Prodigy Takes Over. By elementary school, Tiger's talent was undeniable. At 6 years old, he won his first junior world championship. Over the years, he would collect 6 junior world golf championships in total, a staggering achievement that hinted at what was coming. He wasn't just beating kids his age. He was beating kids older, stronger, bigger. At 8, 9, 10 years old, Tiger's swing already looked like that of a trained professional. Balanced. Powerful. Technically pure. But there was something else, a look in his eyes. Even in grainy home videos, you can see it. He lines up a shot. He stares down the fairway. He looks locked in. Not like a child playing a game, but like a competitor solving a problem. As he grew older, he became a dominant force in junior golf in Southern California. He'd show up to local tournaments, quiet and shy off the course, then dismantle the field once play began. And he was doing it in a sport that, at the time, was overwhelmingly white. As a young black and Asian American kid walking onto private courses, he stood out immediately. He later recalled moments when he felt that difference, when it was made clear to him, in subtle and not so subtle ways, that he didn't look like the players golf clubs were built for. That difference would eventually become part of his power. But in those years, it meant dealing with barriers, spoken and unspoken. Dress codes. Stares. Slides. Expectations. The response, encouraged by his father, was to let his clubs do the talking. Chapter 3: Conquering Amateur Golf. By his teenage years, Tiger Woods wasn't just a promising junior. He was a phenomenon. In 1991, at the age of 15, he became the youngest ever winner of the US Junior Amateur Championship. That alone would have been historic. He did not stop there. He'd go on to win the US Junior Amateur 3 times, 1991, 1992, and 1993, the first player ever to accomplish that feat. But Tiger's ambitions, and Earl's vision, stretched further. Junior events were stepping stones. The greatest prize in amateur golf was the US Amateur Championship. In 1994, at age 18, Tiger arrived at the US Amateur at the TPC at Sawgrass in Florida. The field was stacked with top collegiate players and rising talents. But there was an aura around the teenager from California. Tiger battled his way through the match play bracket. In the final, he faced Trip Kuhne, falling behind by 5 holes after the first 18. Most players would have cracked. Tiger didn't. Slowly, methodically, he clawed his way back. Hole by hole. Shot by shot. By the end, he had completed one of the greatest comebacks in amateur golf history, winning the match to up and becoming, at the time, the youngest US amateur champion ever. That would have been enough to secure his place in the record books. But like the junior ranks before, Tiger wasn't satisfied. He won the US Amateur again in 1995. And again in 1996. 3 straight US Amateur titles. A record that still stands. By then, he was a household name in the golf world. His gallery at amateur events sometimes looked like those of pro tournaments. Kids followed him. Media followed him. Expectations followed him. In the fall of 1994, he had enrolled at Stanford University on a golf scholarship. At Stanford, Tiger was not just a sports star. He was also, for the first time, embedded in a broader college life, classes, friends, a campus where he could be something other than the golf kid for at least part of the day. On the course, he was devastating. In 1996, he won the NCAA Individual Championship and was named College Player of the Year. But the walls were closing in. The amateur game could no longer hold someone this good. The phone calls from agents and sponsors were constant. So were the questions from the media. When would he turn pro? Chapter 4: Hello, World. In August 1996, after winning his 3rd straight US Amateur and playing in his 2nd Masters as an amateur, Tiger Woods made his decision. He was turning professional. His first public words as a pro came not at a press conference, but in a commercial. Over the image of a 20-year-old tiger staring into the camera, Nike released a simple message to the world. Hello, world. It was more than an ad. It was a statement of intent. The money was massive for the time. Tiger signed deals with Nike and Titleist said to be worth tens of millions of dollars. For a player who had never struck a shot as a professional, the scale was unprecedented. Now, he had to prove he was worth it. He did so almost immediately. In just his fifth professional start, he won the Las Vegas Invitational on the PGA Tour. A few weeks later, he won again at the Walt Disney World Oldsmobile Classic. He was named PGA Tour Rookie of the Year, and he hadn't even played a full season. The media frenzy was intense. Golf had never seen anything like it. This wasn't just a good young player. This was someone people believed could redefine what was possible. But all of that, the hype, the commercials, the magazine covers, was still only a preview. The real explosion came the following spring. Chapter 5, Augusta 1997, A New Era. Augusta National Golf Club is one of the most storied places in sports. For decades, it had represented tradition, exclusivity, and history, some of it noble, some of it painful. The Masters tournament had never been won by a black man. In April 1997, a 21-year-old Tiger Woods arrived there to play his first Masters as a professional. In the opening round, he shot 40 on the front nine. Nerves. A brutal start. It looked like the pressure might be too much. Then, something clicked. He shot 30 on the back nine. The comeback had begun. Over the next 3 days, he tore apart Augusta National in a way no one had ever seen. He drove the ball 30, 40 yards past his competitors. He hit towering iron shots that dropped like darts. He chipped and putted with a calm that almost seemed unfair. He didn't just win. He destroyed the field. Tiger Woods won the 1997 Masters by 12 strokes, shooting 18 under par, the lowest score in tournament history at that time. He became the youngest Masters champion ever. On Sunday, as he walked up the 18th fairway in his red shirt, his face still boyish, the moment went far beyond sport. His father, Earl, stood near the green, eyes filled with tears. When Tiger holed the final putt, he embraced his father in a hug that would become one of the most iconic images in modern sports. For many watching, especially Black Americans, and people of color around the world, it was a shattering of a barrier that had long seemed immovable. A Black and Asian American man, the son of a Vietnam veteran and a Thai mother, had just dominated one of the most historically exclusive spaces in America. The world of golf would never be the same again. Within weeks, Tiger became the #1 ranked golfer in the world, the youngest ever to reach that spot. He had arrived. And he was only getting started. Chapter 6, Building a Machine. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Tiger Woods set about doing something almost unheard of in golf. He rebuilt his swing, even while he was already #1 in the world. Working with coach Butch Harmon, he strengthened his body and refined his mechanics. He was in the gym lifting weights in a way few golfers ever had. He brought a new level of athleticism to a game once associated with leisure and softness. On the course, the results were frightening. From 1999 to 2002, Tiger Woods played at a level that many consider the greatest sustained stretch of golf ever played. In 1999, He won 8 PGA Tour events, including the PGA Championship at Medina. In 2000, he reached something beyond dominance. At the US Open at Pebble Beach, Tiger won by 15 strokes. 15 shots. He finished at 12 under par. The next best player, 3 over. No one had ever won a major by that margin. No one has since. Later that summer, he went to St Andrews in Scotland, the home of golf, for the Open Championship. He won by 8 strokes, completing the career Grand Slam at just 24 years old. Then he won the PGA Championship at Valhalla in an electrifying duel with Bob May, taking the title in a 3-hole playoff. He wasn't just winning. He was rewriting the record books, one by one. By April 2001, he reached perhaps his most unique achievement. He arrived at the Masters having won the previous 3 majors in a row, the 2000 US Open, 2000 Open Championship, and 2000 PGA Championship. When he won the 2001 Masters, he accomplished something no one had ever done, holding all 4 major championship titles at the same time. It wasn't a traditional Grand Slam, won in a single calendar year. But it was something just as historic. The world called it the Tiger Slam. Between 1999 and 2002, Tiger won 7 of 11 majors. He made 142 consecutive cuts on the PGA Tour, another record. Week after week, year after year, he seemed unstoppable. Television ratings soared whenever he played. Prize money across the sport exploded. Courses lengthened and toughened themselves in an effort to stand up to his power, a process some called tiger-proofing. He wasn't just dominating golf. He was changing it. Young athletes who once might have dreamed of playing basketball, football, or baseball were suddenly picking up golf clubs, trying to swing like Tiger. He became a global icon, with his Sunday red shirt and black pants forming a near-mythical uniform. When Tiger was on the leaderboard on a Sunday, everything else in sports felt smaller. But behind the scenes, the pressures that came with that dominance were enormous. The expectations. The constant attention. The demands of sponsors and the media. And the personal life of Tiger Woods, carefully guarded, tightly controlled, was beginning to show signs of strain that the public could not yet see. Chapter 7: Love, Loss, and a Changing Game. In the early 2000s, Tiger's life changed off the course as well. In 2001, he met a Swedish woman named Elin Nordgren, who had been working as a nanny for another professional golfer's family. The two began dating. Their relationship unfolded mostly in private, away from cameras. Tiger was intensely protective of his personal space. But in 2004, the public saw a glimpse of that life when he and Elin married in a ceremony in Barbados. As his fame grew, clever commercials and endorsements kept his image polished. He had become, to many, a symbol of perfection, the perfect swing, the perfect champion, the perfect life. What few people saw clearly was how heavy that image could be. On the course, Tiger continued a second wave of dominance. In 2005, he won the Masters again, producing one of the most memorable shots in tournament history, a delicate chip at the 16th hole that hung on the edge of the cup for a moment, the logo on the ball slowly turning toward the camera, before dropping in. Later that summer, he won the Open Championship at St Andrews once more, underlining his mastery of links golf. By now, he wasn't just an athlete. He was one of the most famous people on the planet. But nothing shaped him more deeply in this period than his relationship with his father, Earl, and Earl's declining health. Earl had been the architect of Tiger's career, his guide, his fiercest protector. In 2006, Earl Woods died following a long battle with cancer. The loss hit Tiger hard. A few months later, he arrived at the Open Championship at Royal Liverpool, in England. Instead of his usual powerful driver, he chose to hit long irons off the tee, meticulously plotting his way around the course. On the final hole, safe in the lead, Tiger walked up the fairway fighting back tears. When he sunk the final putt to win, the emotion he had held back broke through. He sobbed into the shoulder of his caddy, Steve Williams, the joy of victory inseparable from the pain of loss. He went on to win the PGA Championship at Medinah a few weeks later, reaffirming his status as the best golfer in the world. In 2007, Tiger and Elin welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Sam. In 2009, their son Charlie was born. To the outside world, the picture was perfect. A legendary athlete at the height of his powers. A family. A global brand valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars. But privately, Tiger's life was becoming more complicated. Injuries were beginning to accumulate, especially in his left knee and his back. And choices he was making away from the course would soon detonate his carefully crafted image. Chapter 8: The Broken Knee and the Quiet Before the Storm. In 2008, Tiger entered the US Open at Torrey Pines in Southern California, already a legend. But this tournament would add another, almost mythic chapter to his story. Unbeknownst to most people at the start of the week, Tiger was badly hurt. He had a torn ACL in his left knee and stress fractures in his leg. Every swing sent what he later described as searing pain through his body. On some tees, he grimaced. On others, he limped. But the competitor in him refused to withdraw. Across 4 days of regulation play, he battled not only his opponents and the course, but his own body. He holed dramatic putts, including a curling birdie on the 72nd hole to force a playoff with journeyman pro Rocco Mediate. An 18-hole playoff the next day did not settle it. The two remained tied after regulation. On the very first sudden death hole, Tiger finally prevailed. He had won the US Open on one leg. Many who witnessed that performance, including fellow professionals, called it the most courageous golf they had ever seen. Shortly after the tournament, Tiger announced he would miss the rest of the 2008 season to have reconstructive surgery on his knee. He was only 32 years old, with 14 major championships to his name. Many believed Jack Nicklaus's record of 18 majors was all but certain to fall. Tiger would return in 2009, win again, and contend in majors. But something else was building beneath the surface. In November 2009, everything changed. Chapter 9: Crash, Scandal, and Public Collapse. In the early hours of 27 November 2009, police responded to a call from outside Tiger Woods' home in Windermere, Florida. His SUV had crashed into a fire hydrant and a tree near his driveway. What initially appeared to be a minor car accident quickly spiraled into something far different. Reports emerged of broken windows, of his wife, Elin, allegedly using a golf club to break glass and help him out of the vehicle. Within days, stories began to surface in the tabloid press alleging multiple extramarital affairs. The image of Tiger Woods, the disciplined champion, devoted husband and father, the man whose commercials toasted integrity and focus, collided violently with these revelations. Major sponsors distanced themselves, paused campaigns, or ended partnerships. Tiger, famously private about his personal life, was now the subject of an intense and unforgiving media circus. The details were messy. Painful not just for him, but for his family. For weeks, Tiger disappeared from public view. Then, in February 2010, he stepped onto a small stage in front of a select audience of friends, colleagues, and reporters, and delivered a televised statement. He admitted to infidelity. He apologized to his family and fans. He spoke about undergoing therapy and taking an indefinite break from golf. The statement was carefully prepared, but the vulnerability was undeniable. For years, he had seemed almost superhuman, emotionally guarded, focused only on performance. Now, the world saw a very different Tiger, one who had made profound mistakes, hurt the people closest to him, and was facing the consequences in front of millions. In August 2010, Tiger and Elin finalized their divorce. On the course, his performances mirrored the turmoil in his personal life. The aura of invincibility was gone. He went from being the man others feared to looking like just another struggling player, searching for answers in his swing, in his body, and in his life. The fall from grace was as dramatic as the rise. But the story was not over. Chapter 10, Lost in the Wilderness. From 2010 through the mid-2010s, Tiger Woods entered the most uncertain era of his career. He parted ways with coach Hank Haney and later began working with Sean Foley, trying to rebuild his swing yet again. The changes were not just about mechanics. His body, after years of violent, powerful swings and training, was breaking down. Back spasms, knee issues, Achilles problems. His list of injuries grew. On the course, glimpses of the old Tiger would appear, a clutch shot here, a tournament contention there. In 2012, he won 3 PGA Tour events. In 2013, he won 5, regaining the world #1 ranking for a time. Yet something was missing. In major championships, he came close but never sealed the deal. The majors that had once seemed his birthright now slipped out of reach. Meanwhile, a new generation of players, many of whom had grown up idolizing him, Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth, Jason Day, began winning big tournaments of their own. The gap between the Tiger of legend and the Tiger of the present widened. In 2014, back pain forced him to withdraw from tournaments and ultimately led to his first back surgery, a microdiscectomy. In 2015, he struggled badly, at times looking almost unrecognizable. His once flawless short game faltered. He missed cuts by wide margins. His world ranking plummeted. Commentators began to ask if he was done. Some said his body simply couldn't withstand the torque of his swing anymore. Others questioned whether the grind of chasing perfection for decades had finally caught up with him. Tiger was still relatively young in life, but in golf years, he looked old. But perhaps the lowest point came away from the course. Chapter 11, Rock Bottom. On 29 May 2017, police in Jupiter, Florida, found Tiger Woods asleep behind the wheel of his car, pulled over on the side of the road. The vehicle was damaged. The engine was running. He appeared disoriented. He was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. A breath test would later show he had not been drinking alcohol. But a toxicology report found several medications in his system, painkillers, sleep aids, and other prescriptions. The mugshot of Tiger Woods, eyes half closed, hair disheveled, spread around the world in minutes. For some, it was another punchline. For others, a heartbreaking image, the once invincible champion brought low, struggling publicly with pain and medication after years of surgeries. Tiger later said he did not realize how the combination of prescribed drugs would affect him and took responsibility for the incident. He pleaded guilty to a reckless driving charge and entered a diversion program. But his public image, already battered, took another hit. At that point, it was not just fair to wonder if Tiger would ever win again. It was fair to wonder if he would ever play competitive golf again at all. His back was in constant pain. Simple activities, like playing with his kids, were difficult. In April 2017, he underwent a fourth back surgery, this time, a spinal fusion. It was a drastic step, permanently fusing vertebrae in his lower spine in an effort to stabilize it and relieve pain. The goal, he said at the time, was not primarily golf, but life, to be able to live without chronic agony. Very few people believed he could come back from that surgery and compete at the highest level. Even fewer believed what would actually happen next. Chapter 12: The Impossible Comeback. Slowly, after his fusion surgery, Tiger began to heal. He hit putts, then chips, then half swings. By 2018, he returned to the PGA Tour on a limited schedule. At first, expectations were modest. Could he walk 4 days without pain? Could he make cuts? Anything beyond that would be a bonus. Then, something remarkable started to happen. The swing speed returned. The competitive fire was clearly still there. Crowds swelled wherever he played, drawn by curiosity and hope. At the 2018 Open Championship at Carnoustie, Tiger held the lead on the back nine on Sunday. He did not win, but the sight of him atop a major leaderboard again sent a jolt through the sports world. Later that summer, at the PGA Championship at Bellerive, he charged up the leaderboard on Sunday once more, firing at pins, thrilling fans with a vintage performance. He finished second to Brooks Koepka, but the message was clear. He was back. Then, in September 2018, at the Tour Championship at East Lake in Atlanta, Tiger finally completed the journey. He entered the final round with the lead. As he walked up the 18th fairway, thousands of fans flooded in behind him, forming a sea of humanity, pushing against the ropes just to get closer. This was not just a golf tournament. It was a resurrection. Tiger Woods won his 80th PGA Tour event that day, his first victory in 5 years. Players who had grown up as kids watching him now found themselves competing against him. Many of them admitted they had goosebumps watching that final walk, even as they were trying to beat him. But the greatest chapter of his comeback was still to come. Chapter 13: Masters 2019 Redemption. In April 2019, Tiger returned to Augusta National for the Masters. He was 43 years old. He had endured multiple knee surgeries, 4 back procedures including a spinal fusion, public scandal, divorce, and a DUI arrest. He had been counted out, written off, buried, and resurrected in the court of public opinion more than once. Few athletes get one iconic arc in their career. Tiger was now chasing his second. That week at Augusta, he played with patience and precision, carefully managing his way around a course he knew intimately. On Sunday, he began the day a couple of shots behind the leaders. The drama unfolded slowly. One by one, Other contenders fell back under the pressure and the swirling winds. At the par 3 12th hole, several opponents splashed their tee shots into Rice Creek, making costly mistakes. Tiger did not attack the flag. He played conservatively, safely to the fat part of the green. He made par. Then, on the 13th and 15th holes, he pounced on the par 5s, making birdies, seizing control of the tournament. By the time he reached the 18th green, he needed only a bogey to win. The scene felt like a mirror of 1997, Tiger in red, the roars of Augusta, history waiting. But this time, his mother was older. His children stood waiting near the green. And the man walking toward them had lived a much more complicated life than the boy who had walked that same path 22 years earlier. He tapped in the final putt. The crowd exploded. Tiger threw his arms into the air and roared, a primal celebration years in the making. Then, in another echo of history, he hugged his family, this time, his son and daughter just off the green. For many, that hug symbolized something beyond golf. It was about second chances. About a man who had failed publicly and painfully, who had hurt others and himself, finding some measure of redemption through perseverance and responsibility. He had just won his 15th major championship, his first since 2008. Very few people alive will forget where they were when they saw that moment. For Tiger Woods, it was not a return to invincibility. But it was proof of something else. Greatness can endure, even when the person who carries it is deeply human. Chapter 14, The Elder Statesman and Another Crash. In the months after his 2019 Masters victory, Tiger added another milestone. Later that year, he won the Zozo Championship in Japan, his 82nd PGA Tour win, tying Sam Snead for the most in history. He also served as a playing captain for the US team at the 2019 President's Cup in Australia, leading and competing at the same time. It was a preview of another role he would gradually grow into: mentor, leader, ambassador. But his body was still fragile. Back stiffness, surgeries, and an aging frame limited his schedule. He played sporadically through 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the entire sports world. In February 2021, a new, shocking chapter began. On the morning of 23 February 2021, Tiger Woods was driving near Los Angeles when his SUV left the road at high speed, rolling over and suffering severe damage. Emergency responders arrived to find him trapped in the vehicle. He was extricated and rushed to a hospital. The injuries to his right leg were catastrophic: multiple fractures, shattered bones, extensive trauma. Surgeons worked to stabilize the limb. At first, there were quite questions about whether his leg could be saved. Once again, just as with his back surgery years earlier, golf slipped into the background. The first goal was survival. Then, walking. Only much later, if ever, would there be talk of competing again. Photos of the crash scene shocked fans around the world. Many assumed that Tiger Woods' playing career was over. And again, many were wrong. Chapter 15, Walking Again, Swinging Again. Months after the accident, Tiger released a short video, a single swing on the practice range. It wasn't full speed. It wasn't perfect. But it was Tiger Woods, hitting a golf ball, standing on two legs that doctors had fought to save. In late 2021, he played a light-hearted, unofficial event, the PNC Championship, a family tournament where pros compete alongside their children. Tiger played with his son, Charlie. He rode in a cart between shots. He walked gingerly. But the swing was still there. Fans were struck not only by his ball striking, but by how much Charlie's mannerisms and swing resembled his father's. For a moment, the scene was less about records and more about lineage, a father and son sharing a game that had defined one of their lives and would shape the others. In April 2022, Tiger did something almost no one imagined he could do so soon after his accident. He teed it up in the Masters. Augusta National is one of the most demanding walks in golf, up and down hills, across uneven terrain. Tiger completed 4 rounds, making the cut. He limped. He grimaced. But he finished. It was not a victory in the traditional sense. But it was yet another improbable step in a career defined by comebacks. Over the next seasons, he would make occasional appearances at major championships and select events, often limited by pain and recovery time. He spoke openly about how different his preparation had to be, how each competitive outing was now a test of endurance as much as skill. At the same time, he increasingly embraced roles off the course, designing golf courses around the world, mentoring younger players like Justin Thomas and others who grew up idolizing him, working through TGR Foundation, formerly the Tiger Woods Foundation, to expand educational programs, learning labs, and scholarship initiatives for underserved youth. The little foundation he and his father had started years earlier had grown into a significant educational organization, focusing on STEM education and college access for students who might otherwise be overlooked. And in the business world, he continued to evolve. Long associated with Nike, Tiger eventually closed that chapter and launched his own apparel brand in partnership with TaylorMade, signaling a new phase of his identity as an entrepreneur and brand builder. His competitive schedule shrank, but his shadow over the game remained enormous. Chapter 16: Legacy, More Than Numbers. When we talk about Tiger Woods, it's easy to lean on statistics. 15 major championships, 82 PGA Tour victories, tied for the most all-time. 142 consecutive cuts made on the PGA Tour. Multiple seasons that rank among the greatest ever played. But numbers alone do not capture what he did to the sport of golf. Before Tiger, golf was a niche interest for many. After Tiger, it was must-see TV. Broadcast ratings soared whenever he competed. Prize money across tours and tournaments grew dramatically, driven by the interest he generated. He inspired a generation of players, not only to take up the game, but to approach it like athletes, emphasizing fitness, strength, and mental toughness. He also changed the face of golf. For kids of color around the world, seeing Tiger Woods dominate at places like Augusta National was a powerful, undeniable statement: you can belong here too. His path was far from perfect. His personal failings, exposed so publicly, hurt people around him and shattered the image of faultlessness that had once surrounded him. Yet his response in later years, acknowledging his mistakes, embracing his role as a father, and gradually rebuilding a more grounded life, offered a more human, if more complicated, version of who he was. Tiger's story is not a simple tale of relentless rise. It is a cycle. Ascent. Dominance. Fall. Reinvention. Again and again. Chapter 17: The Man Behind the Myth. Strip away the headlines, the scandals, the trophies, and what remains is a person shaped by forces he never fully controlled. A father who believed his son was destined for greatness and pushed him relentlessly toward it. A society that alternately celebrated and scrutinized him, often projecting ideas of race, perfection, and success onto his shoulders. A body both blessed with extraordinary talent and battered by years of torque, pressure, and surgery. And a mind that, from childhood, was trained to win. In interviews later in his life, Tiger sometimes spoke with more reflection, more humility. He expressed gratitude for simply being able to play with his kids or walk a course at all. He talked less about chasing numbers and more about appreciating moments. That doesn't erase what came before. Nothing can. But it does paint a fuller picture, not the myth of Tiger Woods, the unstoppable machine, but the man, brilliant, flawed, driven, sometimes broken, and always, somehow, still swinging. Chapter 18: What his story means. In the end, what do we make of Tiger Woods? Is he the greatest golfer of all time? Some say yes. Others point to Jack Nicklaus and his 18 majors. Debates like that will continue for as long as people care about the game. But greatness is not only about numbers. It is also about impact. Tiger brought an intensity, an athleticism, and a cultural force to golf that it had never seen before. He broke records and broke barriers. He inspired millions to pick up a club, to watch a sport they had never cared about, to believe that excellence could look different than it had in the past. He also showed, in painful detail, that even the most disciplined champion can lose his way. That talent does not erase responsibility. That public triumph can coexist with private failure. And then, he showed something else. That it is possible, after falling, to work, quietly and painfully, toward becoming better physically, emotionally, personally. His 2019 Masters win wasn't just about golf. It was about perseverance after humiliation. It was about a man facing the consequences of his own choices and the limitations of his own body and still finding a way to compete. As the years pass, his role in the game will continue to evolve. He will not always be the man in red stalking the top of the leaderboard. But he will always be there, in the swing of a young player who grew up watching him, in the scholarship given to a student through his foundation, in the diversity of the crowds at tournaments around the world. Eldrick Toned Tiger Woods was born in 1975 with a club in his hands and a mission in his father's mind. What followed was not a fairy tale. It was something more real. A human life. Extraordinary, messy, tragic, triumphant. Played out on some of the most beautiful landscapes in sport. Under the sharpest spotlight in the world. And through it all, there was one constant. He kept stepping onto the tee. He kept staring down the fairway. He kept swinging. This is the story of Tiger Woods. Not just the champion, but the man.